For this first slide, I've chosen 3 quotes from different sources that talk about Jon Favreau and his intentions in making this film. The first one I think is my absolute favourite. Favreau is quoted as saying that all of this, honestly, is one big magic trick. And I really think that speaks volumes about Moving Picture Company have been able to achieve in terms of computer-generated imagery and filmmaking. This is creating something that looks completely believable and realistic, but as he said, it's a magic trick, it's an illusion, and that the animal characters were deliberately created with a realistic look, and not in a cute and cuddly cartoon style, as the original was, in order to target older moviegoers. And this is a clear strategy on Disney's part. One, they do want to introduce a new generation of children to an older Disney classic. That's clear. However, they also have fans of the original movie and children who would have grown up with that film, whose parents would have seen it and passed it on to them, and so on. So they have this fan culture that's out there who are now adults themselves, possibly with children themselves, and this is a direct appeal to them in terms of, one, nostalgia for the original, but also in the style of the type of films that they may be more inclined to go and see. And finally, this quotation comes from the Moving Picture Company about Favreau, and they say, he saw the opportunity to give audiences the wish fulfillment of living with animals. Again, that idea, that little bit of magic. And for that world and the characters, in believability. We had to create an experience that was charming, like the classic, but intense when the story needed it. And again, this is about focusing on those darker themes that come through in the original Kipling version of the story. Creating this as being more action-based, there's some quite intense chase scenes and fight scenes, for example. What's that charm? Okay, one of the first things in production then is, I've talked about, is the CGI, computer-generated imagery. So it's important to note in the production of this film that all the animals and the landscape are created on computers, mostly by a British company, MPC. You can see here in the image the type of thing that we're looking at. Disney using, or MPC using, blue screen technology, using lighting, using some physical landscapes, and those methods are particularly useful when they want to show Mowgli walking, for example, and they want to make that look realistic. He is going to walk over sets that are undulating, sometimes on kind of like moving turntables. They're going to use when he's kind of sitting in the water, hanging off a branch. They need some real physical sets to make it look believable. But when you look at the final version, you can see how much has been added in those post-production stages, how significant that CGI is to the final effects. I'm going to recommend here that you find out more about this, and there are tons of videos available. There's loads on YouTube. I will put all of the links on to show my homework. But also, I would encourage you, please, to have a look at the Moving Picture Company's website. Okay, alongside ideas about CGI then is this concept of photorealism. You might also see this referred to as the technique of photorealistic rendering. This is the craft of making a synthetically generated image look real and look like a photograph of the real thing. Now, this is incredibly difficult to do, but advances in technology become increasingly more efficient at this. So, as it says here, when designing a scene, the digital artist must specify the geometry of the objects that will appear. They assign materials, textures, they overlay light sources and look at shadows of those objects. And by doing that, then the computer is able to generate a picture by calculating how light is reflected off of the objects, and how that would then look when it reaches the eye, or in this case a virtual camera. Okay, to talk about another one then, celebrity voice casting. This one provides us a really direct link and comparison to the 1967 film. We know that Disney pioneered the use of celebrity voice casting with that animated classic, and of course they're going to have continued doing similar things in their more recent films. The 2016 version is no different. We can see Bill Murray playing the wonderful role of Baloo, Ben Kingsley as Bagheera, Idris Elba as Shere Khan, and we've got lots of other actors we can see there. What's interesting here is that there is the addition, really, of the wolves, who are not necessarily main characters in the Disney original version, but Raksha, voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, becomes a central character and the mother figure in this version. Now, what tends to happen in film production when they're using voice casting is a process called motion capture. This is where technology is used to map the movements of somebody's face, their facial expressions, mouth movements, as they speak, to give a really realistic depiction of that person's face in the character. If you want to find out more about this, the best person to have a look at is Andy Serkis, who pioneered that technology and uses it very widely in his films. However, this type of technology also poses a challenge for an animation team who want to make their animals look believable. As it says here, by nature, the animals do not speak dialogue. They do vocalize, they make sounds, but they don't speak. So, they started to question this. If it was real, how would you shoot it? If an animal could talk, what would it look like? And starting from that frame point then, they started to really study real-life animal movements rather than just solely relying on motion capture, and looking at photographs for reference. So back to that idea of photorealism, looking at, well, if a snake was to speak, how would it speak? How would that compare to a character like Baloo, who is a much bigger personality, who's much more animated in their actions? Okay, in terms of distribution then, well, the sole distributor of this film was Walt Disney Motion Pictures. We know that Disney as a conglomerate is horizontally as well as vertically integrated by this stage, owning multiple companies at each stage of the film chain. Throughout 2016, in April in the USA, but across Europe and other countries, right the way through to July of 2016, as it says here, in 70 different territories. So a global release of this movie. And it's timed for summer release, and really in terms of marketing then, well, this is an interesting film for marketing. Traditional forms of marketing are still being used, so they are going to want word of mouth promotion, use of posters, use of trailers, but unlike the 1967 version, they now have a much wider range of platforms to market on. So they are going to use what we call the 360-degree marketing strategy. They're going to try to cover something in every possible channel. They're going to try and make things more immersive, so using websites, social media, as well as theme parks, fan conventions. They're going to target very specific audiences, whether they are male audiences, Spanish audiences. And they're going to think very carefully about where are the most strategic places and times to promote this film, to get it out to the type of people we want to come and see it. Okay, just a very quick whiz through these then. Firstly, these posters that were used to promote the voice casting and the celebrity actors of the film, I think are absolutely beautiful. Very high production values, and very sleek and classy. I quite often look at these in class against some of the early posters used for promoting the 67 version, and we can see just quite how much of a different tone that they have. Well, I've said to you in the timeline that Disney had branched out. By this stage, they've got chains of Disney stores all around the country. They've got multiple theme parks, websites that sell their merch online. So they have a much wider selection of products that can be released alongside the film. One of the key things around advertising and promoting the Jungle Book was to focus on the fandoms. Disney know their fan base well. They were able to utilise that by having a fan convention at one of their parks where they brought out some of the key actors on stage with Favreau. They talked directly to fans. They handed out posters and flyers. Really hailed as a really successful thing. They also had these wonderful sand sculptures in some of the Disney parks, again to promote and to get that kind of buzz and excitement about the text. In terms of focusing on male audiences, well, there are 3 ways that they really did that. Firstly, was by focusing on Favreau as the director of Pirates, specifically about the studio that brought you this film. They advertised on ESPN, so on American sports channels. They had an extended trailer before Star Wars Force Awakens. They had a trailer also during the ad break of the Super Bowl that really emphasised the action and the main action scenes of the film. So this was a deliberate targeting of a predominantly male audience. They also decided that they wanted to target Spanish families, so they focused on Hispanic audiences by teaming up with a television company in America called Univision. Univision ran a 5-week schedule that focused on bits of the Jungle Book. They had things like the characters, clips, telenovelas, talk shows, bits of sports coverage, all linked to the Jungle Book. The focus on social media was an effective marketing tool. Again, this is what stands out as distinctly different from that 1967 version. They now have so many more tools at their disposal. They're able to create things that are highly immersive. The Lore of the Jungle website taking you into and a journey through the jungle. Having promotions that focus on key characters, virtual reality experiences, a Facebook video that allowed you to look around 360 degrees into the jungle. Finally, then, the film was released in different formats, and I think that's the key thing to focus on for exhibition of this film. It was not just released in those 70 territories, different territories. It was also released in different forms. It was released in 3D, first of all, in North America, later then 3D in IMAX and IMAX 3D in different cinemas worldwide. And this is an important part of adding value. We're able to add to the film's value chain. It allows you to sell that movie in different formats, so making a real 3D available to people that have that technology in their homes, on their televisions. As we might expect, it was released on DVD, it was released on Blu-ray, it became available to stream on Disney+, and it is thought currently to have grossed around $966.6 million worldwide. So a huge amount of profit made from the film in comparison to that £175 million production budget. Okay, there is a lot of content there. I'm very aware of that, and I know that in a video I can only do it, not really do it justice. So, as before, I'd like you to work through and answer 10 questions linked to the film chain, but there's more to this. You really do need to use that knowledge organizer. Go to the NPC website and make notes, and watch some of those YouTube clips as well, please, and make notes on them.